Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Bitcoin News Show right here on the World Crypto Network YouTube channel. We're here every other Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific talking Bitcoin. We got a bunch of awesome guests tonight. We got a bunch of awesome topics. I'm excited to get to it. I want to introduce the guests, but also want to share with everybody that this is actually our 1 year anniversary. The show has been on for 1 year. We've been trying to do it every other Monday. It's been bouncing back and forth, but it's we still kept it going. We started on blab.im and now we're on the YouTube channel. So we're really having a good time, and I think that everybody's gonna have a good time tonight. So let's introduce our guests. First person we're gonna introduce is our special guest tonight, Christopher Burniske. Christopher, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, Vortex.
Awesome. Very, very glad to have you on. Thank you so much. I know it's late there for both you and Tone over there in the East Coast, so we really, really thank you for staying up with us.
Thanks for having us.
And you bet. And let's introduce, of course, almost needs no introduction, but Mr. Thomas Hunt of the World Crypto Network. How you doing, Thomas?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Thomas. Tone, we got Tone here, Mr. Tone Vase, the famous Steemit proponent. Or opponent, I mean.
Yes, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
I just saw the article myself today, so
awesome. Awesome. Very cool. We'll have to get into that. And then we got Gabriel D. Vine joining us again. How you doing, Gabriel?
I'm doing great. It's wonderful to have Mr. Burniske here to join us. I am so pleased to be joining once again the Bitcoin News Show, which I have been involved with for nearly a year, but not quite. I'm honored to be here on the anniversary.
Yes, sir. Gabriel was with us for a long time, really back in the early days. And actually, his hair was short. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I first found Gabriel on my show, and at that time, his hair was normal length. I don't know what Bitcoin did to him, but clearly something went wrong. So no problem. Then finally, we got Ansel from bitcoinandmarkets.com. How you doing, Ansel?
Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, Ansel's been a great guest as well. You know, he's been on the show for a number of episodes dating back months and months as well. So really glad to have a few of our regulars here. And I'm going to try to thank, everybody that I forget. It's been a pretty long journey. Really, I have to thank the World Crypto Network so much because I've been seeing you guys, watching you guys for years, Thomas and all the classic crew, with even backdating with Andreas Antonopoulos and, Megan Lords and all those people. And I just wanted to go through just quickly a few people to thank. Actually, before I thank some people, actually, I just want to go through real quick and just ask, the panelists just real quick how the WCN affected you and how the WCN, and just see what you guys think real quick. So Thomas, we'll go with you first.
All right. It was just funny. I was hearing you say WCN and I was laughing because this is something my little brother and I kind of invented in our kitchen. We were talking back and forth. Basically, I started out, I saw Bitcoin take off. I didn't have any early Bitcoin. I knew about it. I didn't buy any. A lot of people have that story. And I was like, what can I do? What can I do to help Bitcoin? And I wasn't a programmer really, so I wanted to help. So I made some Mad Bitcoins videos. And then I started making some Bitcoin group videos that were obvious parody of McLaughlin Group, but no one watches McLaughlin Group. And so I started doing that. And it was a little more serious. And I wanted to have a channel, a place for serious kind of YouTube hangouts. And we had just kind of gotten this hangout ability. Hangouts had a different format. If you watch the early shows, it's shot in a different style because that's how Hangouts was. And you can see the Google people move the little boxes around as they develop the Hangouts product. But if you go back and watch the first major live show on the World Crypto Network was when Mt. Gox closed. We got Andreas Antonopoulos on here live. We got Chris Ellis on here live. And they just went at it and talked for hours and hours. And what's great about YouTube is it's all still out there. So all of this stuff, you can go back and watch old episodes. And I just want to say how great the World Crypto Network's done really good, because now it's about other people making shows. And that was always the goal. And if you look here, we have 9 million minutes of watch time. So people have spent 9 million minutes watching our content. We have 713,000 views. We're zeroing in on 1 million views. And as you can see from the rest of the channels, we have around 963 uploaded videos. We're getting very close to 1,000 videos, which is a lot of content. And most of these videos don't even have ads. Some of the early ones do. Maybe we'll put them back on, who knows. But right now it's just a big archive of content for everyone to enjoy. And we're talking about cryptocurrency, and sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, but we're putting our opinions out there. And it's kind of a history of what people thought while this was all happening. So really great to have the Bitcoin news, and it's great that you're celebrating your first year, and it's good to see you keep going. And I like the way there's a lot of new people on this show. Anyone should be able to come on here, put their opinions out, have a little part of the discussion, and then join the Slack, join the World Crypto Network, and maybe have your own show one day. All you really have to do is do 10 shows on your own channel, do them weekly or something, get used to it, get a little format going, prove that you're not a crazy person like Gabe, and then boom, you're on the network. So you're all set. So I think I've talked enough. So I'll let you talk some more, Vortex.
Thanks so much, Thomas. Yeah, I mean, I very much encourage everybody, who wants to talk about Bitcoin and has something unique to say, to definitely contact Thomas and see if you can get a show on the WCN, because we're always looking for more people to talk about Bitcoin. We're constantly trying to spread the message. So if you guys got a show, please contact us, and we'd love to talk.
You could do a short show too, like 15 minutes, 5 minutes. Doesn't have to be 5 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's 17 and a half years of watch time.
Holy smokes. So yeah, Gabriel, real quick then, just if you could just give a quick minute on the WCN.
Well, I've told this story to Thomas a number of times, but I don't know if I've ever actually, I think I've gone into it a little bit, waxing poetic on the Bitcoin group, but I used to listen to the Bitcoin group. This is before the Bitcoin News show existed, of course, back exactly when Thomas is talking about, when Gox went down, just before Gox went down. Of course, I was watching Mad Bitcoins. I was watching for any type of shows I could find on YouTube. It actually never occurred to me at the time to do my own show, but I think that was because until I saw the Bitcoin group and I listened to these idiots just droning on and on, Tone, Vase, who's this Vase guy? He's a trader who doesn't trade anymore? Thomas, I don't even know what his deal is. He looks better with a hat. Chris Ellis, well, that guy's smart. I want to talk to him. That was kind of my thing. No, I'm just kidding. I was really appreciative of the format and how Thomas changed up his whole vibe from the Mad Bitcoins thing to be a talk show host. And then to hear the rhetoric and the discussions going on was very stimulating. And it was so stimulating, in fact, that I got the very urgent desire to express my own opinions and my own perspective. And I was so excited to contribute that I came on the Slack and I asked Thomas. He said, "Yeah, why don't you go on Vortex's show? He just started a new one, so he's looking for guests." And I came on here and started ranting, and I had a really terrific time. And then Vortex and I got married, which was great because of the new. No. He lives in Vegas, and we're wrong. It's the wrong orientation, but we bromance. Anyways, after the bromance, Thomas was like, "Oh, you're not a complete idiot. Come on the Bitcoin Bitcoin group." And I just have really enjoyed it. And now I feel completely satisfied. Every single day I wake up content that I was able to pontificate emptily that week again on the Bitcoin group and on the Bitcoin News show. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Of course, I've started my own show, Future Rant. Life has sent me through some diagonal turns since I started, but I will be picking it back up very soon.
Awesome. Yeah, I think everybody here, has really created some amazing content. I tried to, at the end of the show, give everybody a plug so that everybody can go. Even Christopher, the Burniske, the guest speaker here, he's got a ton of content. Ansel, Gabriel, Tone, Thomas, they've all got a ton of Bitcoin content, and really, the core message is just to spread the word of Bitcoin. And you can see the passion behind all of these people, and that was really the huge inspiration for me. And I just had a great time. And I'm having a great time with all you guys, and I'm really thankful for everybody who's watching the show. So just real quick, I'm just going to go through a few people to thank, and then we'll move on to the news and stop boring everybody with all the sentimentalness. But really, though, thanks so much, Thomas and Chris Ellis, Blake Anderson, all of the original Bitcoin, all the original WCN founders, and people that have actually been on the show, like Tone Vase and Theo and Alex Stirk. And Dustin from Bitcoin Art Gallery, he and I did the show a lot. He was a guest star a lot in the early days, and so really thank him. This is kind of sounding like an award show, but really I got to thank you guys so much, because I've had you guys have been so inspiring, and without you guys there'd be no Bitcoin News Show, and there'd be a bunch of other shows. Gabriel wouldn't be here, all sorts of other people wouldn't be here. So I want to thank all my special guests too that I've had and that I will have. We had Tour de Meester on here, Paul Stork. We're gonna have Paul McNeil. We had Edward from Renegade Investor. We're gonna have Victoria Van Eyck on here. So we're gonna have a lot more guests in the coming weeks. I'm gonna make sure to try to have a special guest on every episode, so that we can just bring more, kind of grow our microphone and bring more discussion to the table in the world. So that's the goal, to just keep talking Bitcoin. And of course, thanks to everybody so much in the chat room. And I really apologize to everybody that I missed, but this is a great thing here to have the World Crypto Network. And I just hope that everybody enjoys the shows and the content that everybody here has been making. So really proud to be a part of this group. Everybody here has worked their ass off. So thanks so much, guys. So just a quick applause to the WCN and to Thomas. Thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So awesome. All right, so let's probably get into the news a little bit here. We got a bunch of fun stuff. It's been a fun week, and it's going to get crazy. But actually, sorry, before I even get into the news, we got to get to Christopher. He's been doing some amazing content, and I really kind of want to ask him a couple of questions. So just real quick, first, Christopher, maybe if you can tell everybody a little bit about yourself and then how you got into Bitcoin, and then after that, we'll kind of go more into what you're doing in Bitcoin right now. So.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I'm a global citizen. I guess I would say I was born in Ecuador, lived in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Hawaii, Texas, California, and so have been able to see, I guess I'd say over time, the importance of global networks, with Bitcoin obviously being a splendid example. Like a lot of people, I would say, I was introduced to Bitcoin through the Silk Road. I was actually in college at the time. Was at a friend of a friend's house, and he was basically like, "You got to see this. This is one of the craziest things I've seen in a while on the internet." And so explored the Silk Road in that evening, and then this friend was actually trying to set up a mining operation. I remember looking at mining equipment with him on Craigslist, and fell out of touch with this friend pretty quickly. Like I said, it was a friend of a friend. I don't even know if he set up the mining operation, to be honest, but it had definitely piqued my interest, and so stayed occasionally abreast of things until I got the chance to start professionally focusing on the space in late 2014.
Awesome. And so, basically I've been kind of following you a little bit, seeing you on some panels, seeing your tweets, and you seem to be, you seem to have kind of all the core values that the Bitcoin people have, but yet you work on Wall Street. So, it's kind of getting like, wow, well, we need to get this guy a bigger microphone. We need to get this person in front of more people so that he can speak about, like the difference between public and private versus blockchains, because of course that discussion is just ludicrous and getting insane. And as we now find the blockchain bubble starting to pop, right? The discussion becomes almost even more important. So, so before we get into that, real quick, what are you now doing then with Bitcoin, Chris? And how do you see Bitcoin from an investor point of view? And how do you see it kind of playing out and changing the world?
Right. So I serve in a research and business development role at Ark. So doing a lot of deep dive research on, Bitcoin as a new asset class, the long-term security of the Bitcoin network, especially investigating, the switch from block rewards to transaction fees. And so this was all started around Ark wanting to make an investment in Bitcoin. So Ark is a registered investment advisor. We have roughly 300 million in assets, and so we have investment vehicles like exchange traded funds, ETFs, and we wanted to get exposure to Bitcoin to our investors. But in order to do that, had to do the due diligence to make sure that this was something that was going to be around for the long run, which I obviously believe it will be. But then also to see how it behaves in a portfolio. So because of that, Bitcoin is, I think, the first and only public investment manager to have invested in Bitcoin. We have it in 2 of our ETFs. So I was explaining to Tone before the call started, one of our ETFs, the Next Generation Internet ETF, has like roughly 40 names in it. And the 10th name is Alibaba, the 11th name is Google, and the 12th name is Bitcoin. Had to work, with infrastructure providers to get Bitcoin into an ETF. And so, continuing to do research, I'm right there with you on the permissionless side of things. And then also exploring different ways for Ark to help, the Bitcoin and broader permissionless space, because we're believers in the power of the innovation therein. All of that said, it's late past work hours, so I am just representing myself and not necessarily Ark. So generally stoked to be here. Really looking forward to healthy conversation and debate.
Awesome, man. That's really great to hear. So let me just ask you real quick, because this is a fun one. So how do you explain to investors and people on Wall Street, like the difference between public versus private blockchains? How do you kind of speak to them and without saying something like, you guys, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Private blockchains are retarded without proof of work. How do you say that in a nice investor way to the investors? I'd like to hear.
So I typically try and work a lot with history or analogies, just to give people context, because especially within the traditional capital markets, there's an initial aversion, right, to Bitcoin. It's this new weird thing, and minds will shut down, right? So what I'll do is an easy one, right, is AOL. Versus the broader internet. So this idea that early on, and even before AOL, where you had an intranet, and like if you go back to ARPA, right, it was initially just 4 universities, I think, that propagated that network. But what really opened up the power of the internet was making it so that anyone could become a node on the network. And so that same idea applies to permission blockchains, where it's a walled garden of people that can participate, versus permissionless blockchains. Another analogy that doesn't work perfectly, but the idea is there, is when you think about when people were first virtualizing their compute environments, you initially had a lot of companies saying, oh, well, you could never run in a public cloud. The security wouldn't be there. How could you trust a provider to do that? And so people virtualized and they ran their private clouds. But now you have companies like GE migrating 90% of their workload into Amazon's public cloud. So once again, you see sort of a general trend of migrating towards bigger, more open networks, because that is just the way the world is trending. So to imagine that the blockchain space is going to be any different would be to ignore many of the lessons of history.
Very true, very true. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away is these private blockchains really are ignoring the lessons of history, right? They are just completely looking past all the time and time again when we get these new global world changing technologies, whether it's electricity and cars or, PCs, then the internet, every time it gets overlooked. And then I think, as you say, they just get devoured by the public blockchain or by the public networks every time. So Really awesome to hear. That's a great perspective, and we hope that you will just keep up the good fight and explaining this, because the blockchain right now is at peak height, so you got a few years ahead of you of explaining this kind of stuff. So really awesome to hear we got somebody on Wall Street talking about public permissionless blockchain. So really
Happy
cool
to be doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Because Andreas, we love Andreas, right? But he does not go near like banking conferences, right? He only sticks to Bitcoin conferences. So we need like more Andreases for the Wall Street. So
right. No, it's it can draw fire. But the CEO founder of my firm, Kathy Wood, always says the truth wins out. So so long as you're out there speaking what you be to be the truth and doing it with the best intention, then things typically work out. And Andreas is an inspiration for me, right? So I'm just, in a way, funneling Andreas into another situation.
I think that's what really, what I've been doing too. I think we're all just, I think everybody in the WSIN is just funneling Andreas for the most part, like, because, he's the one who started it all, right? He was the first, he was one of the first speakers out there that was truly putting kind of mind-changing speeches out there that really, that made people think that regular people even could understand. So I think that's how he helped just capitalize on everything like that, just get everybody talking about Bitcoin. And it was just really great to, even if you go back and watch those old speeches, even back in 2013, like it still gets you going. It still gets you going, still makes you want to sell your house and your car for Bitcoin. But so we'll see what happens. But I think we can get into the news here. We can finally jump in. What are we? 30 minutes in, so that's no problem. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of great topics. There's been a lot of stuff with R3 in the news this week, right? So I think that's going to be our first topic. Basically, we got Goldman Sachs and Santander. Santander, I think I'm pronouncing that right, banks leaving R3. I think this is just going to be the start of the whole domino effect of R3 finally tanking, maybe being finally at the top of the blockchain hype after all of 2015 and seemingly 2016 as well. So let's go first to Christopher. What do you think about these people leaving R3, and are they even showing any progress? Was it even a good idea in the beginning? And maybe talk about why these banks are leaving R3.
So there's been rumblings of this for a while now, right? I remember in the summer, a few articles came out about how R3 was splintering, and then the articles got pulled quickly. And that was kind of a weird occurrence. And then we know they've been trying to raise this mega round, which just in and of itself is really hard to pull off. I would say, from the beginning, this idea of bringing together a lot of these banks and trying to get them to agree on different implementations is a heroic and potentially impossible task. When R3 first came out, I, like probably everyone on this show, had an immediate aversion to the idea, and it is very much the antithesis of the ethos of Bitcoin more broadly. It's a walled garden environment. I think that said, Mike Hearn, yes, he betrayed the community, I would say, but he's a smart guy. Richard Gendel Brown is a smart guy. There are really smart people there, so I'll be curious to see what Corda looks like when they open source it later this month, and I think that will be some proof to the pudding. In the interim, what happens with their consortium? Anybody's guess, right? Like, you have a lot of these companies trying to patent things that they're pulling out of the consortium, and I would not want to be trying to herd all those cats. That's for sure. So that's my initial take on it.
It seems like almost an impossible task. I mean, to make all these banks work with each other, and it just doesn't sound logical to me. But well, we'll see what happens. We'll go with Thomas next, and then Tone. Thomas, what do you think about these people leaving R3?
I definitely wouldn't be bullish on them getting their second round. As Christopher said, if they're about to release something that's exciting, that's interesting, I'd like to see what they've built, what they can release. But again, it does have the general problems of not being Bitcoin. It's not being tested on an open network. Its code isn't being looked at as many people, and its token isn't as valuable to get people to mine its network and protect its network. So I think they're going to have a hard time overcoming that. In general, it's sad to see this go. This is a lot of marketing money burnt up on this blockchain idea again, when we could have used this marketing money on Bitcoin. We could use a nice generic, easy-to-use wallet. We could use a way to buy $20 of Bitcoin on your credit card and to get the Bitcoin instantly and not have to do a bunch of hoops, a bunch of KYC. I don't know if we're going to get these things, but these are the things that Bitcoin could actually use and need.
Very true. Very true. We'll go with Tone next. What do you think about this crazy R3, man?
I'm not surprised. And like I've been saying for at least 6 months now, I have no idea what R3 is doing. And I am 100% sure that they have absolutely no idea what they are doing. I've been saying it for 6 months. I should have been saying it since day one. I kind of was, but I just wasn't sure what they were doing. So I wasn't all that critical of R3 at first. I'm like, well, I think they're kind of smart. They should know what they're doing. I have no idea what it can possibly be, but I don't get it. And then about 6 months after their existence, I came to the idea that they have absolutely no clue what they were doing. And I was right to question it. I just sent out a tweet where basically R3 was offering all these investment banks that they will build the greatest Excel spreadsheet and they will put it on an equivalent of a Google Doc, and then several of them will have admin write permissions, and then the rest of the people will have read permissions. And I guess Goldman Sachs was the first to figure out that their engineers are much better in their database knowledge, and their CTO team is much more efficiently than anyone at R3, I'm guessing. And then Santander bounced, and they're all going to bounce. I mean, my only question is, will anyone actually sue R3 for the stupidity that they were bringing them? However, in that article has said they are not giving up on blockchain, which tells me they still don't understand what a blockchain is, but I'm pretty sure they will sooner or later. Oh, on a side note, when you were asking everyone, the World Crypto Network, I have a very good memory, and I have no idea how I ended up on this channel. I became a regular on this channel. I remember that my first appearance was the Bitcoin group number 74, 75, or 72 in that area. I don't remember how I ended up on that show, and then I came back 2 weeks later, and then I was on Theo's show for... remember how it all started. I remember the first time I met Thomas was at the Miami event where we remember, and I don't kind of remember everything, so this is going to bother me for like the rest of the week. Thanks for that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Tone, I got, Tone, you and Gabriel become kind of regulars on the show, and now I got, people in the comments telling me they won't watch the show unless either you or Gabriel are on the show. So it's like, oh man. So I guess the people like you, Tone. So really glad that you came on the WCN. Really glad you found us. So that's pretty awesome. Let's see here. And yeah, I remember you Tone, you only been on the show for like a month or two, a couple months. So, definitely a welcome addition to have you on, and so whenever you get a chance, you're more than welcome on the show forever there, Tone. We'd love to have you. Very cool. Let's see. So we've got next after Tone, what did I say? I think Gabriel. Gabriel, so what do you think about R3 and Cordova? And real quick before, sorry, go to Gabriel. Tone, to answer your question, you're like, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what R3 is doing. Well, don't you know they're building labs in Singapore, and they're creating like identity tests, and they're proof of concepts. That's about all that they're doing, at least that we know of, right? So, Gabriel, go ahead. What do you think?
Thomas said something that I was thinking is BS, but I didn't write it down fast enough. And so I don't, well, I'll see if I remember it. But if not, I'll throw it in the comments of the show. I'll check out his comment again because I got really distracted when Tone said that he's waiting for the banks to sue R3. And actually, I haven't heard that quite yet. And that's just brilliant. And that's just a natural consequence of this situation. And I'm sure that Goldman and Santander dropping out is just the first salvo in the legal fights to come over the $250, $300 million that were spent on absolute vaporware. R3 from the beginning has been in the business of extracting investment money from banks, and they've been very good at it. I think that they're some of the most talented fintech entrepreneurs for their ability to hoodwink financial institutions. They seem to be very effective at seducing and misleading these naive and greedy individuals. I wonder what CTO, or like, not CTOs, maybe like a director of database management, those type of individuals, the second tier technologists at financial institutions. I wonder what they think about the banks siphoning off their budgets into these blue sky, cloud nothing whatever projects, when they've had this technology and probably been using forms of it. In other words, hashing the previous data into a new database cell. They've probably been doing that since 87, 88, early 90s at the latest, I would think, these financial institutions. Tone might know better. But I wonder what those guys think about R3 just burning through random money, and I'm assuming throwing some parties, drinking some champagne. I mean, if you got 300 million, there's a lot of good things you can do with that. Making blockchains unsecured by tokens is not really in that list, but I think there's a lot of fun you could have. I just really want to hear what Ansel has to say, actually.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You guys keep asking me what they're doing. Well, they're building all of these places, all these blockchain centers around the world, and they're throwing huge parties, right? And all this kind of stuff, all this news that we hear out of R3. So it's ridiculous. These hundreds of millions of dollars get spent in a matter of months sometimes. But Ansel, go ahead. What do you think, man?
I think if it was just Santander, that wouldn't be a big story. But I think since it's Goldman, the most connected bank in the world, basically, they know every financial regulation that's going to come down the pipe for the next 2 years probably already. And they have a hand in writing those. If they're bailing on this blockchain stuff, they probably know the regulations are coming. They know that the private blockchain thing doesn't have a future because it's going to be stopped through regulation. And a lot of these other big investment banks and stuff, they're going to see that, Goldman can't do it. A lot of the interest in blockchain technology or DLT, whatever, is going to wane a lot. And I think that's going to hurt Ethereum, bringing that back to like the altcoin space. I think all these blockchain-based projects like Ethereum, Lisk, what are some other ones out there? There's quite a few that are around like apps on a blockchain. That's going to be very negative for them and very positive in my view for Bitcoin. So as investors like Chris's firm there, as they're looking to do this kind of stuff, I would look at Bitcoin. There is no other alternative now. This is a big kind of clarion call for the industry, I think.
Very true. Someone in the chat is saying that they didn't get hundreds of millions of dollars of investing, and we'll have to double check. But the last time I checked, maybe you guys can correct us in the chat, but I thought it was over $100 million. To be honest, to see what their investments were. When we can double check it, we'll put some links in there. But we know that it's tens and tens of millions of dollars, and 25 million sounds so small. We had investments from all the huge big banks here. We're talking. Goldman Sachs, they had 40 different banks join them, and you're telling me that there's only $25 million of investment? I don't know.
So Vortex, I think the way it was working, I don't know their initial seed or Series A or whatever it may have been rounds, but they were working off of a subscription model. So I don't know the exact number, but let's assume that the banks were paying $100,000 a year to be part of the network, and now there's over 70 banks, right? That's at least a revenue stream of $7 million annually. And it might have been more than 100,000 a year. 100,000 a year is not that much for a Goldman or whoever it may have been. But then this was like around, I think, to split R3 into like the labs. This is just what I've heard through the grapevine. R3 into labs, and then R3 into more like an implementation enterprise ready division.
Okay, so maybe. Oh, go ahead, Tone. Sorry.
So I mean, I just Googled it. I'm looking at a Business Insider article that says R3 is looking to raise 200 million. I don't know if they reached that goal, but that was, I'm pretty sure they got 100 million. I'm not sure if they got to 200, but they were raising 200 million. This was early this year in May.
Okay, see, so they might not have got the whole 200 million, but
they came close. They got at least 150, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, so there you go. So yeah, I would say they got at least over $100 million in funding, and remember, it was less than Tone said, it was just May of this year, and then the whole thing is less than like 2 years old, less than a year and a half old. So it's just ridiculous how much money they got from the banks in such little amount of time. But hey, it's blockchain, right? So they used the blockchain word and got wheels moving pretty fast. But yeah, so crazy stuff. Does anybody else want to add anything on the R3 news before we move on to the next topic?
I think it says in the Financial Times that they got $60 million raised. The 150 to 200, that is the Series A or the second round. And that's what Goldman and Santander have refused to join, is the second round.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Because obviously each round is going to go up much more than the previous. Okay, so that makes sense. So they probably were looking at this, and saying that, this is what I've said from the beginning too, is that is that these banks were never there to join a consortium, right? They were there to try to see what they could steal, what they could use for their own means, because banks just don't work together very well, right? They just, when it comes to the secret kind of stuff, the secret ways that banks are, they just don't want to share information at all. Very, very little information do they want to share. So the act that they would have a private blockchain that would share across banks and that people could see their assets and such, it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to us. And I think that most of us on the WCN were pretty bearish on R3 on R3 in general.
I'll mention one last thing. Sure. I mean, I spent my time on Wall Street working directly for a CTO. Now, by my first, like at Bear Stearns and then at JP Morgan, it was the same CTO I worked under. And he was a database guy. He wanted to do everything in the database. Like, he didn't even like our C++ guys. He's like, I'd rather write it in the database. Like, no, we're going to write C++ code, and we will ping the database to get the data, and we're going to models and more efficiently. And then he would be like, no, I can get the math down faster in the database. He was like a straight up database guy. This is what I don't see. I don't see any CTOs of these banks. I don't see those that bring their head of their database. So, I mean, my CTO, when he was changing everything around, he was taking away all of these write permissions. His developers, database developers. I mean, the database team at the company that I worked with was 70 people, maybe 20 developers. The biggest number of people were on the database side of things. And he didn't want anyone writing directly into our database. He created all these stored procedures. And then we were trying to build a front end for all the users. Like, if you're a database guy, you don't need a front end. But if you're not a database guy, you've got a front end. The reason you got a front end is that he said if he saw a table that didn't have an LUB, LUD, and if someone's listening to me right now has no idea what an LUB and an LUD are, you go and Google them right now. Every database has an LUB and LUD field because the CTO needs to know who made the change, and it's a permanent record. I don't know if, even though it was Bear Stearns, JP Morgan has it because it has financial data. Regulations will not let us delete that data. So it's all there. So this whole concept of it's a permanent record is completely ridiculous. If anyone altered some of that data, CTO knowing who it was, if you found who that was, that person will be fired. So this whole concept of we need this consortium, no, it's just a database. They have all these tools. They're not new. They've always existed.
And what's like you said, Tom, what's kind of strange to me is that more of these CTOs don't come out of the banks like pushing these blockchain stuff. It's just like R3, like no actual banks are coming forward saying, yeah, we're doing this awesome work, we're doing this great work and things like that. I don't know, Christopher, if you've seen anybody on the scene, much CTOs, or if it's just all these CEOs pushing their private blockchains. Have you seen any actual like CTOs from banks come forth and say, oh man, Cordova is awesome, or anything like that?
So I'll take a little bit of a counter consensus view here.
Sure.
I would say that so for example, with Corda, right? They've engineered a few things, like they're setting up something somewhat similar to payment channels for this selective privacy, right? Depending on who wants to be party to the trade. But generally, what I see happening with the blockchain space, I think Tone says it correctly, and this has been somewhat of the narrative, that it's a new form of database. And it is different in one regard from past databases. So if you think about a SQL database when it first came to be, right, it was slower, more of a pain to set up than other databases at the time, generally inferior, but it had this one cool characteristic, and that was that you could query it after the fact, right? And I would say that a blockchain, even a permission blockchain, while I agree that the power is not of a permission blockchain is not on the same scale of a permissionless blockchain, I still think it has the one added and valuable characteristic that you can share this with multiple untrusting parties without fear of any single party corrupting the data. And I think that from conversations I've had with different people within banks, that it will have some effect in terms of making things better, faster, cheaper. I don't think it'll all be vaporware. I think that we're all in agreement that we're very high within the hype cycle. But certainly, you know, where we see new business models and a paradigm shift is still within the permissionless space.
Yeah, Chris. But can't I give you access to a Google Doc without giving you right permissions? I mean, didn't Google solve this problem like a while ago?
So I agree with that example, but we're talking about more complexity within a blockchain, right? And I also agree smart contracts are way overblown. But there's only so much you can do to program a cell within Google spreadsheets. As we get into
I'm simplifying the example. I'm just saying there's nothing revolutionary in the technology that they're trying to build.
I think that I wouldn't call it revolutionary. I agree with you there, but the tweak for banks is this idea, even if it's not that much of a difference from pre-existing technology, it's gotten banks to think of this mindset that, you know, we need to do things in a more efficient manner, and that probably requires collaboration of some kind. There was this really interesting article from, I don't know, a few months back that said one of the greatest things blockchain has done within banks is made the back office sexy again. And so I think there's a number of ways to think about it, but I think it will generally drive efficiencies, if for no other reason than this fear of getting disintermediated by the permissionless space.
Well, hold on a second here, Chris. I mean, you know, quoting platitudes is not the same thing as you know, hard-nosed logic here. Let's look at the technology. As you said, when SQL came on the scene, it was slower, but you could query it, and that was its powerful feature, and that was so useful that it took over. I totally agree with that. On the other hand, permissioned blockchains do not actually introduce any brand new technology that has not already been, once again, as I mentioned, in the toolbox of these directors of database tech at fintech firms for 25 years or 30 years. I mean, all you have to do is hash the previous block and put it into the hash the previous cell and put it into the next cell. Grouping transactions into blocks is not particularly useful. I mean, that's not like a what's the selling point here? I mean, the blockchain as it stands today is stripped of all that makes it Bitcoin useful, and what you're left with is simple, cryptographically secured database entries that have been around for 30 years. So what exactly is the distributed ledger tech that these people at these executives or people buying contracts expect to get? Is it just that they've had the tech and not been using it, and now there's a fire lit under their ass to actually use simple cryptography in their databases, or what?
So generally what I think the main value add is, and this goes back to what is one of the magic sauce components of a blockchain, and that is the shared nature, right, across different parties. Because by and large, when you look at the tech stacks of these big banks, they're pretty siloed, right? And they're their own unitary walled garden. And that leads to all these reconciliation headaches, right? Where people will have their own separate books to the same trade. And so by just merging the books into one book, it's not revolutionary. It's just a better, faster, cheaper mechanism, right? And it's gotten the banks into a mindset of, okay, it's about time. We haven't updated our infrastructure since Y2K for the most part, and this is lighting a fire under people's ass to do so. That's
I see. So it's really the shared. So it's really, once again, it's. I mean, there have been distributed database models for 25 years, or maybe only 20, and so they've had that technology as well. But this is once again just a way to. This is just a way to push them out of the gate a little bit to get them to start to work together and work on some efficiencies that will benefit the industry. I mean, because once again, shared databases, distributed database technology, has been around for way longer than a decade.
Yeah,
So
I would agree. I would agree generally with that summary.
Okay.
Yep, very cool. So yeah, I mean, it seems we've been very critical of R3 here on the WCN, and calling them vaporware and stuff like that. But if they do open source their project, it will be very interesting to see. It will definitely be excruciatingly viewed by Bitcoin people around the world, I'm sure. And so if they do open source it, we'll see. We'll stop calling them vaporware, but I know that there's people there doing something, so we'll just hope to see what it is. And I guess making the back end sexy again is just kind of just not quite what Bitcoiners really want, right? We want a little slightly bit more than that. We kind of want global change, right? We want permissionless innovation. We want the central banks to stop printing money. We want all sorts of different things, all sorts of things that doesn't mix with Wall Street and the private blockchains and things. But like you say, Chris, if this lights a fire under their ass to at least begin heading in that direction, that's great. And that's really what Bitcoin is doing, right? It's holding up a big mirror to these banks and to these governments, showing them another path, showing them another way, a way out of this crazy centralized silo secrecy thing. And so we'll see if that plays out well. I'm hoping that it will, but some banks aren't going to like it and some banks will. And just like the internet, the ones that will succeed are the ones that will take advantage of the technology. So very, very cool stuff. I think we can move on to the next topic, unless anybody else has got anything to say on that. I think we're good there. Very cool. So if we could, if everybody in the chat or everybody watching could just please tweet out the show, let everybody know we're talking Bitcoin. Tweet it out, Facebook it out, let people know we're talking Bitcoin here live. We're here every other Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, talking Bitcoin. It's our little bi-weekly ritual. We love to talk all the Bitcoin geeky stuff, so we don't really claim to be experts as much as enthusiasts per se, but we definitely love talking Bitcoin. So share that out, and we really appreciate it, guys. The more views we get, the more we can spread the message of Bitcoin, right? So that's the goal at the end of the day. So I think we can move on to the next topic here. This is going to be a big one. The IRS seeking data from Coinbase customers. At the same time that the at the same time that the Inspector General is telling the IRS that it needs to overhaul its Bitcoin tax strategy. All of this stuff happening, it seems to be what we've always feared. The IRS is finally going to be sticking its big long nose into Bitcoin. So I want to get everybody's thoughts on this. First, we'll go with Christopher. What do you think about this, Christopher? What do you think about the IRS trying to come in and just blanket request everybody's Coinbase information, and then what do you think this means for the industry at large, and then kind of how do we see this playing out or evolving in the next year or two?
So I think we're probably all in agreement that this is an overly broad request for information, and Coinbase has rightfully pushed back on things. I think it's exactly as you just said, Vortex. The real inconsistency for me that leaves me scratching my head is, why would you do this at the same time that you likely need to reform your policies? And that for me is, I think, for Bitcoin long run, the more important question, because treating Bitcoin as a property inhibits adoption in that it makes it a total tax headache, right? Whereas if you were to pursue something more along the lines of Europe and think of Bitcoin more as a currency, and it really does operate well as a currency, right? Means of exchange, store of value, and unit of account, and it's showing strength in all of those, then that makes it much easier to use for everyday things. And so, I hope that Coinbase continues to oppose this. And I think they're getting good support from Coin Center, which is great because Jerry Brito and those guys do a lot of good advocacy work and have good relations with regulators. And then longer term, would love to see the tax regime change on Bitcoin. Because I work in the space and I'm still scratching my head over some stuff, right? Like, if I go between Bitcoin and different altcoins, is that realizing gains? Is that not realizing gains? Those kinds of things come to mind.
Yeah, there's just really every branch of government at this point, right, is assigning it a different name, right? We got people calling it a currency, we got people calling it a commodity, we got people calling it an asset, all of these different things, and so we're still trying to figure this whole thing out. And then here comes the IRS, just bam, blanket requesting, everybody's apparently everybody's a tax thief to the IRS. That everybody who uses Coinbase is a tax thief apparently to the IRS, because that's at least what I gather from this blanket request. It'd be different if it was just one or two people targeted, right? But this is clearly blanketed at the whole company. So next, let's see what Ansel has to say. What do you think about this, Ansel?
I think it's token resistance. Some might say it's the same as like when Apple was resisting the FBI. It's just to make them look good to the libertarian user base of Bitcoin, and maybe save some face. They'll eventually cave in. They'll eventually give over whatever they're asked to give over. I think Coinbase is an interesting business to look at over the next year, because they have, I believe they have two choices. I agree with Theo, what he said. I think it was on the last Bitcoin group. He said that they either have to become a shitcoin exchange and just trade all the shit coins, or they have to become the regulated merchant provider for Bitcoin in the US. So those are the two routes they have to go. And both of those include some sort of license and regulation. So they can't fight it. Eventually they'll have to give in. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Ansel there. It's token resistance, and he's absolutely right to call it that, especially with their perhaps future being the Cryptsy of shit coins, as they want to follow down the Poloniex path and try to get those hot fees. You got to get those trading fees. But I agree with what Tone said on the show. There is actually some reason to say, why is Coinbase even bothering? We all know they're going to turn over the information, and essentially they're just wasting investors' money and lawyer time for an already questionable business. Does Coinbase make money? How many fees do they charge?
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see, because they still have not given people their Ethereum Classic stuff yet, right? So, I mean,
you guys are still waiting for that? That's hilarious. Well, it's like waiting for Godot now. That's embarrassing.
From what I understand, they still have not given it out, and they use every fork as an excuse. So every time Ethereum does a new fork, bam, Coinbase will pop out. Oh yeah, we're still working on this, and we can't do it because of the fork. And they keep using the forks over and over again as
that would be quite something if that's the thing that takes them down. If it's this Ethereum Classic where they were trying to get into the cool new altcoins and they weren't fast enough to get in on the trading action of ETH Classic, they screwed up somehow. They didn't hold them. They didn't keep them. They didn't realize the second chain would matter. And if that actually brings the company down, well, that would just be a fitting thing, wouldn't it be?
Dude, it seems like the DAO is going to take down everything, right? It seems like the DAO is going to take down Ethereum. It's going to take down Coinbase. It's going to take down all sorts of stuff.
And the whole time, I want to say, we've been calling this. I think everybody here has been saying, wow, you're going to put hundreds of millions of dollars into a test project. That's a honeypot for hackers. That's free money. And then Coinbase is like, we want to trade these tokens. And everyone starts trading DAO tokens. And what happens to you people? What happens?
It's crazy stuff, man. It's crazy stuff. We'll go with, I think Tone's next. What do you think, Tone?
All right, who compared Coinbase to Apple? I would like to give you 30 seconds to take that back. I forgot who that was. It actually just registered in my head. Somebody did that. I'm not sure why I muted myself just there. No, they are not the same thing. Apple had to fight back the government a little bit, because Apple slowly sees the writing on the wall that after their stupidity of allowing hundreds, if not thousands, of nude celebrity pictures get leaked because of their lack of security and their lackadaisical view on user privacy, they had to take a stand going forward. And Apple has the stature to actually fight the U.S. government. And Coinbase has no such stature. It has, maybe 20, 30 employees. If it has more than that, it's completely overemployed. And if I was an investor in Coinbase, I would think this is dumb. You're collecting KYC information. For what other reason are you collecting it other than the IRS? Because the IRS, like Chris said, the stupidity of the way they implemented this on Bitcoin, the IRS basically made everybody, they should have treated it, they should have given it a buffer, treated it as a currency. You are of Bitcoin for profit. Profit needs to be, and then it's capital gains. You are using Bitcoin as a currency, you do not have to face any penalties. And even that would have been hard to implement. But the way the law is written, everyone's a criminal. The moment I saw that law come in, I knew exactly what was coming. But I even saw it coming before that, because before there were even any IRS laws, you would have heard me say, don't ever use Bitcoin in connection with your real name. Into your house, create any digital trace for the government, because it's going to be the IRS that gets you. And that's been my stance from the beginning. So I am not surprised at this. And by the way, this was only for U.S. citizens and maybe Australian citizens, and to a lesser extent EU citizens. Outside of those countries, petty, and so I wouldn't really worry. Like, it's so funny. I've been anti-Coinbase from the day of their existence. Coin in India, and they're exactly the same thing, and they do exactly the same KYC. As an Indian, one is in America, and they can really use the Bitcoin. It's the insanity of their currency, but in the U.S. it's different. It isn't all that bad, contrary to a lot of U.S. dollar. And in this country, there are other things to worry about, like the government knocking down your door. You're kind of, well, like I say, like, they'll ruin your life. May not, but the moment they put you through the court system, you're basically screwed. It's going to cost you all your money because they have unlimited resources and you don't. So, and I know a lot of people back in 2013 that used Coinbase, and they're like, now, oh shit. They're probably going to go after the biggest users first, not the very small users. Very few smart people did their Bitcoin through their ID, even if they've never done anything illegal with their Bitcoin. The law basically makes you a criminal. Guys, be careful.
Be careful with Coinbase and Circle. I used Coinbase too, unfortunately, but I tell you what, I got the hint real fast as soon as they made the requirement question, what is your salary per year? Like, they made all of these other questions like that mandatory. And when they did that, I was like, oh my God, okay, I got to bounce. I mean, I was okay using like a fake name and, stuff like that. And then linking my PayPal to it or my bank account, whatever, because it's not too bad. But then when they start asking all these questions, okay, well, the truth is coming. Okay, it looks like, yes, they do want all of your information just so that they can give it to the IRS if they ever need to. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely regret buying anything on Coinbase now. Luckily, I didn't buy too much. I don't think I split it up between a couple different places, which is another thing I recommend you do, is to not buy all your coin from one place over and over again, to kind of split that up. But yeah, I guess it's going to get pretty crazy in the coming times. The IRS is really going to go after Bitcoin hard for as long as it can, because it is going to be probably the biggest threat to the IRS, I think, in the history of like mankind. So we'll see how they continue to handle that, because they do have to do a major amount of reform just to make honest citizens report Bitcoin stuff to them. Even the honest people aren't doing it because they're asking too much and they're not clear. So we'll see what happens in the coming years.
And I think it's really too bad when they overshoot with these laws. I remember the original DMCA pretty much outlawed sharing. We had situations like Aaron Schwartz, where essentially he borrows a bunch of JSTOR articles, reshares them, and then the government tortures and prosecutes him until he commits suicide. Lawrence Lessig said about the copyright laws with the piracy that they're chasing a whole generation out of the law, and they're saying to them, the things that you do normally, downloading a show, sharing a piece of content, cutting something up and re-editing it, fair use, these make you not a part of the system. And they keep pushing people out of the system until who will be left to go to law school? Who will want to be a part of this system? I don't think anybody intelligent. We'll see.
Exactly. Gabriel, finally we come around to you, man. What do you got to say about this IRS craziness? I know that you already commented on the Bitcoin group, but I can see it in your eyes, man. You're ready to let loose.
I've been making notes, Thomas. That was a great point. The current system and how it creates these fences, and they're quite arbitrary. And in fact, worse than arbitrary, they're deliberately blind to cultural and technological developments, and grasping blindly to old paradigms that didn't even work that well before, but now are patently ridiculous. This conversation really makes me just wonder about the future. I was expecting this move from the IRS in 2014, and I think that didn't happen because I underestimate how slow and ineffectual governments are. I underestimated just how lumbering and lazy governments are because of the lack of incentive. In a coercive structure, you're not going to have the drive to progress, the drive to succeed and create profits that businesses do. So of course, governments move the slowest. They're always well behind the curve. So this is pretty interesting to see it happen about 2.5 years after I was expecting it. And it makes me think about the future as well. So that's the past. I wonder just how long the IRS will continue to bask in this sea of budget. Now, they say they have too low of a budget. to actually enforce tax laws, which is of course true, but it's still a huge amount of money that allows them to do a wide variety of pestering of the citizenry. I really don't think that paradigm is long for this world. Whether it's budget cuts straight up because of massive, Republican, election wins, or simply, or actual, large swaths of the tax policy getting changed. And this not bipartisan. I think we're in the 20th century now. The economy is really different from how it was in the previous century. And next decade, it's set for the most jarring advances and changes yet, with automation taking, really hitting the knee of the curve. We're going to see all that robotic stuff come out of the industry. It's going to come out of the factories and come into daily life a little bit more next decade, in my opinion. And just the sheer amount of automation is going to make this whole job paradigm seem curiously antiquated to certainly millennials, but also generations that are older. So I have a feeling we're going to see complete elimination of income tax in this country within 10 years. And it's the implicit realization that not only do we have a lot of automation, but the inflationary process of money creation, the government having its having a banking conglomerate that creates money for it and gives it unlimited budgets, which are not constrained by anything real. They're just constrained by what the politicians think they can get away with and how much dilution of the money supply they can get away with. Taxation really becomes an unnecessary barrier for the government. It's just really bad for the government's reputation. It just creates a lot of friction and wastes a lot of wealth. The government's budgets are only a tiny. The taxation that is actually collected from citizenry form only a tiny piece of the government's, or the U.S. government's actual budget. Most of it is inflationary money creation. So I really don't see why they wouldn't just disintermediate this whole stupid tax paradigm, slightly increase their money printing, and I think what they're afraid of is that the taxation, they think, increases the the demand for the U.S. dollar, but I don't think that's true at all. I think that it's a coercive paradigm. They have legal tender laws, and you have to take dollars for debt. It's a debt-based paradigm, and that brings us to my last subject I wanted to cover, which is the debt-based paradigm of the Federal Reserve note. How long is that for this world? I mean, Tone, I think, sees it going for the foreseeable future. I think it's maybe a little bit shorter than that. I'm not so sure. It's really the petrodollar, world petrodollar paradigm is going to survive this decade. So it's really interesting to see them do this. I have a feeling that this type of process will cut off a lot sooner than most people realize.
Going to be very, very interesting to see how much power the IRS can continue to wield as these cryptocurrencies continue to really bite into the markets, continue to take up more and more resources. I mean, Andreas described it as all these holes, right? First, we have this big hole that's Bitcoin that's leaking in their ship. And then they got a million other little holes, which are all these altcoins. And how sustainable is their model when it's leaking, just continuously leaking and getting more leaking? And eventually, as you said, Gabriel, by the end of this decade, and with the next Bitcoin halving, I mean, holy smokes. I mean, you got to think that it's going to just be huge. So we'll see what happens. I'm really excited for IRS reform and taxation reform and all of these other things that will hopefully come along with the proliferation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies across the world, as we as all of us on Earth here kind of are experiencing this new financial renaissance with cryptocurrency. And it's just amazing to watch everybody all over the place. People call us a Bitcoin maximalists sometimes, right? Because we believe that Bitcoin's probably going to survive out of all the other coins. But you know what? There's still a bunch of awesome innovation going out there, and there's a bunch of awesome innovation, even like in coins that we don't agree with too much, like Dash and Ethereum. There's still people that are out there working on something other than the Federal Reserve, working on something other than the traditional banking system, trying to disintermediate the traditional banking system. And, whether they're doing it in ways that we don't quite agree with, like with Ethereum or Dash or other different ways, at least they're still out there trying to pushing the cryptocurrency information. And so it's really, really cool to see. Chris, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I wanted to
Please.
follow up with what Gabriel said about the petrodollar, because I think this is one of the more interesting bull cases long run for Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin has so many potential use cases, but one of the really core ones is this idea of unseating the petrodollar for world trade. And it's an argument for actually the Chinese government and the Russian government to embrace Bitcoin. And that is, if you think about how much control the US has had over the, really the last half century due to the petrodollar. And it would be really hard for something like the yuan to unseat. The petrodollar is sort of the world's reserve currency, but you could see something that's non-denominational like Bitcoin actually doing that. Because while right now we think of it as, well, at least coming at it from the industry I work in, it's a clearly contentious topic. I think, when you're a decade down the line and you're thinking of this more as just a mathematically metered currency, which is maintained by nodes in who knows every single country by that point, it can become the most agnostic currency to underlie global trade. So that's potentially one of the bull cases that is more thought-provoking, I suppose.
Yeah, and Bitcoin is a pure representation of energy expenditure too. So in that sense, it has a tangential or orthogonal relationship to the the energy industry as well.
Hey, let me just jump in on this real quick. Can you guys hear me okay? How's my mic?
That's actually better.
Good?
That's actually better, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I personally hate the term petrodollar. I hate using that term. I don't believe that is what's keeping the dollar up. For a while now, I'm not going to make this long about economics. I don't even know how we got on this topic. But I hate the term petrodollar mostly because I don't believe that all the oil is even traded in dollars. I just find that very, very hard to believe. So what people like, what you're going to tell me is that, some guy that has euros was going to come and tell a Middle Eastern company, hey, I want to buy, 1 million barrels of oil. Are you telling me they're not going to take the euros? That's ridiculous. They're going to take the euros, they're going to convert. The only thing that makes it a petrodollar is the fact that oil is priced in dollars. Commodity. And I don't think that has anything to do with it. So I personally hate the term petrodollar. I just think that it's a conspiracy theory that people like to throw around these days.
As someone in the chat mentioned, it's not just the oil, right? It's also the 900 plus military bases we have all over across the world keeping up the dollar too, right? So that probably doesn't hurt, right, Tone?
Yeah, and people don't even realize people don't even realize that the U.S. is on the verge of being the biggest oil producer in the world. Take a look at the numbers.
Interesting. So very cool. Before we move on to the next topic, does anybody else have anything to add on the IRS and Goldman's the IRS trying to get all the information from Coinbase? Nope. Okay, cool. Yeah, we all hate Coinbase. All right, check. So now we can move on to the next topic. We only have one more topic for this evening, but then after that, I'd like to maybe get in a little bit more about what Christopher's doing at his firm. But first, if everybody could just go ahead and Facebook out the show, share out the show, tweet out the show, let everybody know that we're here talking Bitcoin. We love to have everybody tweet out the show and get more people in here. Looks like we got 65 people in here right now, so that's pretty good. We love to have as many people as possible. We get between 50 and 60, and anything over 60 lately has been pretty awesome for us. So that's great. We love to share our knowledge about Bitcoin and talk about Bitcoin. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us again. So let's go ahead and move to the next topic. Let's see. Basically, this Segwit recently began allowing activation, and we signaling basically, and the world has begun signaling Segwit. I think we're at about between 20 and 25% right now, the last time I checked. And so I think that there was an article now that basically over 1 in 4 Bitcoin nodes are now upgraded to Segwit. And then everybody is now signaling, and I think we're at about 20% right now. So I'd like to get the panelists' view on this. First, Christopher, what do you think about Segwit in general, and do you think that it's going to actually win out and be able to be activated? And what are your general thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we got to 30%, at least on BitNodes. So we're definitely ramping quickly, which is good to see. Definitely in line with a lot of the narrative out there in terms of, I think one person put it as the biggest thing since Bitcoin itself, both in terms of, okay, immediately alleviating the transaction capacity problem, also transaction malleability, and then longer term, being able to introduce more opcodes in a less jarring manner, and what that potentially opens up for side chains as well. So I think there's a lot of promise there, and it will help counteract this narrative that at least I find a lot in New York, which is, innovation within Bitcoin is stagnating. It's totally not true. It's a lot of the people driving code improvement aren't out there, talking about it. They've got their heads down. And so this will be, a clear result of that. I think something that concerns me is, via BTC, clearly they're at 8% of the hash rate. And then I don't know if this has been substantiated, but Jihan from Bitmain also apparently is saying he'll run unlimited. And so I guess, after having seen how polarizing things were, it was about a year ago now, right, when XT first got announced, and it's kind of like, why are we doing this again? We're opening up wounds, which I feel are unnecessary. I get it that censorship on different forums is a bad thing, and we need to have open discussion and blah, blah, blah. But we also need to move Bitcoin forward. And I would say that the sooner Segwit is implemented, generally the better. And the core devs will continue to find ways to scale it as needed. But, engaging in a lot of the rhetoric that really it's Roger Ver has been stirring up again, I can understand it from, rebelling against censorship and making sure we have open discussion, but it's frustrating also in terms of, potentially polarizing things back to a degree that I feel like we were somewhat exiting from.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was actually kind of dying down really, and then especially after the Ethereum Classic split, that kind of scared everybody pretty good. But seriously, within just weeks, Roger Ver started tweeting again about Bitcoin Unlimited and about all of this censorship. And look, we get it. Censorship is bad, but I mean, at this point in time, we have our Bitcoin, our BTC, we have all of Reddit. We have Twitter, we have Telegram, we have just everything you can think of, and I just don't see how Roger Ver can be so gung-ho on censorship still when we have all of these different mediums and all of these, and even Bitcoin.com. Roger opened a place that's opened up for discussion, which is great, and we're having all of this discussion, and that's great. But it just baffles me when people are trying to use the defense that Bitcoin is stagnated and that Bitcoin isn't going anywhere, when we clearly have just tons and tons of check-ins per day, per week, that are not just merges, right? This is actual crazy amounts of code being written, and we have all of these features coming down the list. And even Andreas says himself, this is a full-time job for me, and I can't even keep up with all the new stuff coming out with Bitcoin. So strange stuff. We'll go with Tone next, and then Thomas. Tone. Tone. Just what do you think about the Segwit signaling, and do you think we're going to actually be able to get there? And what do you think about Roger still on his rampage?
I I don't know what to do about Roger anymore. It's getting bad. I mean, he's convinced so many people to come to his side, and a lot of these guys are friends of mine, and it's bad. I mean, it's XT, it's classic. That you were right when you said in the beginning. They're basically just brought it all back, and this time it's even worse. And I think there's something wrong with BTC. By the way, I just tweeted it out right before our show started, and in the article that you linked in the description of this video was an interview on Bitcoin Magazine from about 4 days ago. And there was a question about, here's the question. This was an interview with the BTC CEO, I forgot his name already. Many use cases can also be realized through added layers. Some of these layers already exist. Coinbase, these wouldn't have been the layers I would have chose, but they are layers on top for off-chain transactions. And trusted layers like Lightning as well. And during the answer, this is what the CEO of BTC says. Many Bitcoin transactions be made on-chain where they can be traced. I want to know if this is the general opinion of these big blockers, right? Because if they block Segwit on-chain, they're basically putting a huge stop to Lightning as well. And Lightning and some of these other off-chain scaling is what is going to give us fungibility in Bitcoin. On-chain scaling. Putting fungibility onto on-chain scaling, I think, is an idea. But I'm also not a developer, so I don't know. But the way he answers this question, these transactions can be traced. Here, right? I mean, we all know that Mike Hearn wants transactions to be traced. This was proven with back with the XT code when it was discovered that he was blacklisting IP addresses. I mean, I don't trust Gavin when it comes to people's privacy. I don't think he sees any problem with the NSA or CIA, in my opinion, as far as Gavin's thinking is concerned. These are not the people to fight for your privacy. There was on the side of privacy and security, but if you're supporting these big blocks and you want everything to be on chain, you're going to create fungibility. We already have Chainalysis claiming that they have like 60 to 70% of the network covered. We don't have good. They've all so far been found to be a little flawed. I mean, there's new stuff coming down the pipe. This needs to be off-chain. I don't understand what their agenda is at this point. You don't want a hard fork. Ethereum, sometimes I feel like I'm living in a bizarre world. Prove to anyone with half a brain why you don't hard fork. And everyone is screaming for a hard fork. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's really strange, that article. That's a really strange article because you really see the hubris and you kind of can really see the ignorance come through in that article when they say things like, we've never had any orphan blocks when they clearly have, and the lies that are in there. I mean, it's just baffling. Some of the responses just kind of really, like you said, just kind of really baffles me. I will go with Thomas next. What do you think about the Segwit signaling? Thomas?
Well, I want to start off with the censorship issue. I think that at a certain point, you have to stop listening to the peanut gallery. And I think we went through this, like Chris said, we went through this several times with XT, with Classic, now Unlimited. It's getting confusing and boring. And it's basically because the peanut gallery is arguing and other people are coming in and riling them up and they're getting more upset. And I know that the libertarians have a very serious debate. They don't accept anything at face value. They love to argue. And I think we're seeing that now. But what we really need is just to let it go and to let the experts come in, the people who understand this, and to bring us Segwit, and to bring us Lightning and these other solutions that at the first level, we may not trust them. We may not understand them. We may have to study them more, but I think if you look at them, these are the ways forward. It does solve the problem. And I hope that Roger Ver will come back to us. I think he's gone far, far away. He's taken a lot of people with him. I'm not sure why, but I hope he comes back. So let's hope for the best for Bitcoin Jesus.
For sure. I mean, we all love Roger. I mean, you know, he's done great things for the space. And it's just crazy that, you know, these developers, I mean, these are, like you said, Thomas, you know, I'm a web developer, but I mean, I can't write C++ code, but I can tell you that, you know, these guys know what they're doing. They have a proven track record, Bitcoin Core. They have a proven track record. They have code that they've checked in. I mean, these people are scientists. These people are, you know, nothing short of geniuses, and at some point you have to take their word for it, because Roger Ver is not a developer. At some point, you know, Roger and other people have to take the developer's word for it. There's you know, we got Jeff Garzak, you know, saying things too, that he's a great developer, but still, the vast majority of developers are saying that we need to go with Segwit. And remember, Core, to me, like, Core kind of represents developer consensus, because Core really isn't a team. Everybody tries to say the core team, the core team, the core team. It's not really a team. It's a group of a bunch of people, hundreds of people across the planet. You know, I believe that the last version, 0.13.1, had over 100 contributors. Okay, this is developer consensus. Bitcoin Core is developer consensus. And yeah, I guess a lot of people get upset when they try to make a proposal and it doesn't get into Bitcoin, and you know, but the core team can clearly see the bigger picture. There's a reason why they didn't want Z-Snarks in there quite yet, right? There's a reason why they turned down Zcash and other proposals and things like that, because we have to get this right. We have to optimize it as much as possible. And we have to do things one at a time.
Another part of this is that Bitcoin has no central company. Bitcoin has no unified marketing group. We're not planning this on an R&D level. Nobody has the Gantt charts or any of that stuff out. This is an open and distributed thing. So there is going to be some arguments. But what I also want to say is this doesn't occur in a bubble. This is affecting the programmers, and it's affecting them negatively. I've heard stories of Greg Maxwell arguing on Twitter. And much like you said, Vortex, I can't write that code. You can't write that code, but he can. And what we need is for him not to be arguing on Twitter. And I'm not picking on him. I'm saying generically, we need the developers not to be focused on this endless debate that we don't even know why we're still having it 3 developments later of X Classic, Unlimited. Why are we still doing this? We need them to ignore this and to focus on the code. And if you can code it better, if you have a better idea, if you have a better team, make your own. No one's stopping you. But this endless debate doesn't seem to be helping anything.
I mean, it's clear at this point that Roger doesn't just want the bigger blocks, right? He clearly wants to take control of Bitcoin and be the core team. Because if he so much believed in this Bitcoin Unlimited, then he would just create a fork and fork his own and create his own chain. But he wants to take away the development power away from Core. And that's the big thing. This is no longer a technical debate. This has become a political debate, and it's become who wants control of Bitcoin, you know. And because
I think it also seems clear that Roger is taking a serious interest in this. He's spreading the word. He's using every option that he has at his disposal. And I would like to see Core and maybe even Blockstream do more of this, do more public outreach, do more community work, really have an interest in this field. Because okay, everyone maybe thinks they're the big evil empire, but another part of that is they haven't said, we're not the evil empire. This is what we're doing. Here's someone to explain it. I just don't seem to hear anything from them. I just hear this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but on the other hand, I want them to just keep their heads down too, right? At some point. But yeah, I guess they got
$55 million. They better be able to walk.
That's true. Okay, that's true.
They're going to have a hard time in this world.
I definitely agree with you.
Yeah,
I guess
they're not exactly making money, so that $55 million better last. And if they want to hold on to their good developers, they can only program, you know, for free for so long. And I just want to make one more comment, as that article nicely points out. When they asked the CEO of GBTC, so how come you don't program? How come you don't contribute code to Core? Guys, they all have the same answer. Contribute if I wanted to, but there's more money somewhere else. That's their answer to everything. Go ask Vitalik. Hey, Vitalik, your programming talents to programming a bit for core, the Bitcoin grow. Oh no, that's that's no good. I'd rather create Ethereum. Well, like you ask all these guys, I've asked some of these altcoin guys, if you're so smart and you've created 3 or 4 altcoins already, why aren't you just contributing to Bitcoin and adding all those features in? Oh no, I don't want to work with those guys. No, I'd rather do this. Don't give me this crap. I mean, their ideas will get shut down so fast. They're not that smart. They're just not. And what they're doing is they want to get rid of the smart people. Behavior. It's kind of like why I could actually be in politics, never go into politics. It's the same thing. Sitting there going, all right, so we have these honest, experienced, good politicians. All right, let's get these guys out so that we can control the chaos. What they're after, in my opinion.
Yeah, someone in the chat, I think Peter Wolf, or I forget his name. The last name is Wolf, but he's saying like, Blockstream doesn't have 100 people, and yes, that's true. They don't have 100 employees. They have contributors all over the world that contribute to the core that they allow, that they merge in and things like that. So it's not just Blockstream. Okay, that's why I'm saying Blockstream represents a developer consensus, because it's not just Blockstream.
Right, but Blockstream has the smartest of the bunch on reserve so that they can look at this code and pick out the nonsense. Not to mention, I guarantee you those guys argue with each other all the time, even the Blockstream guys. And then they have to continuously bait code changes from the 100 other contributors that are volunteering to help Bitcoin, and it's their job to shift from something useful.
Yep, true. And, I think that they've been doing a great job. We've got a lot of great BIPs from people, that people have submitted, a lot of great proposals, and there's a lot of great work that people are helping Blockstream with. So I hope that continues. And just real quick before I go to the next person, which I think is Gabriel, basically, I want to say that I think that roadmaps at this point are freaking meaningless, because like Gabriel, or I forget who said it now, but maybe it was you, Tone. Basically, there kind of is or actually it was Christopher. There is no. We've never done this before. There is no we've never done distributed consensus before, right? We've never done a project like this before. So there is no possible way that we can create a roadmap. There is no possible way that we can create a perfect roadmap where we can perfectly follow and do this at this date and this at this date. And this, what we're doing is completely unprecedented. And a lot of people have described working on Bitcoin as like working on a 747 jet while it's in air, right? While it's mid-flight. It's just a difficult thing to do. And people expect and demand all these things like a corporation, right? They're like, give us a roadmap, give us a date, give us this, give us that, give us that. And it's like, whoa, this is not a company. Bitcoin doesn't owe you anything. This is consensus here. The most passionate people will come forward and they will put forth their work,
I think they've been pretty transparent. I mean, their roadmap was pretty damn good, and they followed it pretty damn good.
Well, they missed a few dates, but still, yeah.
Yeah, but they missed a few dates. I mean, if anyone's here, I know I always make fun of Redditors as like 16-year-olds. If you've ever even bought a house or an apartment, and I've been through this, I'm sure you've been through this, Vortex, any contractor, it will always cost twice as much, and it will always take twice as long. That's what it's like when you're trying to remodel your house, and that's what it's like with any programming project. The fact that they didn't take twice as long, because I've worked with enough developers in my life, and there's two things that I know. One, it'll always take longer. When I ask them to fix something, I always get an estimate. Oh, this is going to take me. I'm like, okay, why don't you start and then get back to me? And then about 2 hours later, I get this email. Oh my God, you're not going to believe this. I found this amazing workaround. I just saved myself 2 days of time, and I'll be able to get it done in 2 hours. And after about a dozen of those, they still never make the deadline. That's what it is. That's development. Just like it's contracting. It's all the same.
Yeah, it's crazy amounts of work, especially unprecedented kinds of things that we're doing here, and so it's just amazing stuff. So Gabriel, I have you jump in here. What do you think about all this topic Segwit discussion we've been talking about, Roger Ver, right? All this good stuff. What do you think, man?
Well, coming back to the nuts and bolts, I was only able to find the number about a 19.5% for the most recent blocks. The last 500 blocks, I think it was about 100 of the last 500, so pretty cool. Still, I believe it did jump well up into the 20s at some point, but I don't know. I guess it depends on how far back you're checking, but there's somebody tweeting out the percentage every block, which is quite a nice service. Yeah, actually, I should probably find that and let you know what the Twitter address is. But I have to disagree with some of the things that Thomas was saying actually about the Bitcoin ecosystem and the rhetoric. I think that conflict of the type that we've been seeing is quite inevitable. I also disagree with you, Vortex, about the fact that there being too much politics. I think that because Bitcoin, as the first truly decentralized functional system, quite different from any other open source software project like, say, Linux, where you can fork to your heart's content, you have to come to consensus if you want to have a Bitcoin, if you want to have a blockchain that everyone agrees on. So this consensus-based decentralized ecosystem inherently involves human beings persuading each other, attempting to persuade each other using any game theoretical mechanic they have at their disposal, equals politics. We see it with democracy, where democracies are far slower at getting things done than authoritarian states, but yet far better to live in general. So I think that conflict is good. I think that politics are good. That's a sign that the system is working, even though you think, oh, things are going slow and it's not working. No, it's actually, Bitcoin, I think, is actually benefiting from that, from by surviving yet more conflict every day. It proves that much more that it's anti-fragile, that this technology and the community and the ecosystem and the variety and heterogeneity of Bitcoin is exactly the thing that enables it to survive attacks from inside and out so well. And I'm really pleased to see how Bitcoin's just trundling along with these relatively low transaction fees still. Maybe they pop up to 5 cents here and there and then go back down, and people complain. Complain with these, oh, my business depends on 32-cent transactions and it's killing me. And it's like, well, some other businesses depend on 5,000 and up, and they don't give a shit. So who wins? It's everybody's game, and everybody's playing, everybody's jumping in. I think, there's as I'm the resident conspiracy theorist of World Crypto Network, as regular viewers know, I think there's a lot of resources. No, excuse me. There are some resources from external to the Bitcoin system that are being expended in order to attempt political influence in the Bitcoin system. I think that those attempts are so far not doing that great, but as Thomas rightly pointed out, trolls can be powerful, and just as Bitcoin itself required a multidisciplinary approach and a wide variety of skills in order to be created in general, requires a wide array of knowledge in order to understand its importance, its future, its how incredible the invention is. You have to understand a number of widely differing areas: technology, society, culture. So just as Bitcoin is multidisciplinary, it requires of its participants a certain amount of multidisciplinary characteristics, and devs, some of the most intelligent distributed software developers in the world, getting caught up in these debates with trolls is a perfect sign of these guys. They want to try to set the record straight, and I appreciate that. But they've had a bit of a trial by fire too, where these guys are locked up in their ivory towers, doing amazing things for humanity, and then they're suddenly slapped into the light of day, into the light of the harshest reality of anonymous forums on the internet. And I'm sure that Adam Back, Dr. Back, who was, a professor until he came to work at Blockstream, or until he founded Blockstream, I'm sure that he's also had a trial by fire, and Maxwell as well. They're probably not jumping in on forums as much. They've learned a lot too, just like so many developers have learned so much about politics and economics and the Federal Reserve and the history. So I think it's wonderful. I can't wait for more politics. The more drama you see, the more active it is, the better it'll be, and the more Bitcoin will survive even better.
Now,
Yes.
a little earlier, Gabe said he was going to disagree with me, but then at the end of his talk, he came back to my side. I like to have a discussion. I like to have a debate. But if you're willing to have an endless discussion with me, I will talk forever. Democracy has a troll problem. There is a way to subvert the system. I'm not saying that Bitcoin Unlimited is arguing dishonestly, but I'm saying it is a tactic that they could use. The longer they stretch out the discussion, the less work is actually done on improvements, the more they win. That's not a fair argument. It's not logic or debate or anything, but it is an option. You can always screw up the system. So yeah, I would say end the trolling. Let's do some real work.
Yeah, seriously, like Adam Back, Maxwell, I mean, you guys, Peter Todd, all of these developers, seriously, get the hell off Reddit for like the vast majority of the week. Try to limit the Reddit, man, to like, because I see, thanks to Kyle Twerpy, I believe he set up a Bitcoin account, Bitcoin experts that we can follow on Twitter that show whenever these guys post on Reddit, and they post all the damn time. I mean, I thought I posted a lot on social media, but my God, you guys seriously get just put down the Reddit and get to work, because there's so much work to be done. And
let's say the same to the Bitcoin Unlimited guys.
Yeah.
If you guys also want to take your time off social media and write your code, and maybe your code's better and you win, but we're going to end the argument with code, not with discussion, as much as I like discussion.
I don't think that's going to happen. These minor mining pool CTOs are the guys, some of the main players that are completely silent. They're not advertising what they think at all. A lot of these people, these human beings are sitting there in their offices next to the mining farm, looking at the code, reading the arguments, seeing who's persuasive, which concepts make sense to them, looking at Bitcoin Unlimited's code, running the code in a test miner to see what happens, throwing some challenges at it. These are the people that are actually making the decision as to what code is getting out, and also the node runners like myself. We read the rhetoric. It's a political process where we're just like with voting, in a democracy, like you were saying, it's a similar process. This consensus idea is a persuasive technique. It's a completely political process with human beings, and they happen to be talking about something technical, but it's those guys that are really calling the shots, and they're doing it in a somewhat distributed fashion.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll see what Christopher. I think Christopher, you had a point you wanted to make before we go to Ansel. Sorry to keep you waiting there, Ansel, but I think Christopher's got a point real quick.
No, we can jump to Ansel.
Okay, no problem. Just you guys, it's all up to you. There's no ego here. We all love everybody on the Bitcoin News Show. Okay, Ansel, go ahead, man.
We are all friends.
I don't see that it's even an issue, honestly. Like, Bitcoin Unlimited is dead. It's never going to take over anything of the network. It's never going to probably be over 10% again. It's just like Classic. And now they're saying this stuff about the Ant pool and F2 pool or whatever. We heard those same claims from Classic, and they never came to fruition. So you can't believe and it's the same damn people saying it, like Roger Ver. So you cannot believe anything that they say. The only thing you can believe is the blocks on the blockchain. And right now, Core, like 3 days since the last difficulty change, and it's already nearing 25% or wherever, give or take. It might get activated after the next section, because I think it has to go from difficulty change to difficulty change and get 95% of the blocks in between. So it might be that it happens on the next one, but I know it's not going to be Bitcoin Unlimited. I don't think this censorship thing for me is not a big issue either, because everybody knows what real censorship is. What they see on our Bitcoin is not real censorship. You can just go onto our BTC and say what you want there. The loudest people are the ones crying censorship. That's always how it is. They're just a bunch of crybabies, and the loudest crybabies are, the ones that are in the minority. So I don't see a problem. I know I tweet about it a lot, but it's just such a huge uneven fight, or a mismatch between Core and Bitcoin Unlimited, that there's no way. I'm 100% confident that Segwit will get adopted relatively shortly. It might take maybe 2-3 months, maybe out to 6 months, but it will get adopted in the near future. And I don't know what's after Bitcoin Unlimited. But don't forget, Classic still has 2% of the blocks too. So we could see maybe Unlimited go to 2%, Classic go to 2%, and whatever happens after that, I don't know.
It's coming back. Classic's not through. Come on, Classic.
No, I think the 2% from Classic are actually the same person that are Bitcoin Unlimited people. They're just so incompetent, they probably don't realize that they've forgotten to flip 2% of their hashing power onto their new insane idea.
I agree with that.
That's funny. And it's funny, people are talking about censorship, like, Roger Ver and all these people. I mean, we know what real censorship is, right? Like Ansel said, Turkey, I mean, that's real censorship. Getting thrown in prison, that's censorship. Okay. This is not censorship. I mean, okay, oh well, so they kick you out of your subreddit. I mean, that's the internet here. I mean, didn't we not go through 18 bazillion different kinds of communications over the year? First, we started with chat room, we went to IRC, we went to ICQ, we went to AOL. I mean, there's a million ways to communicate in this day and age, and now we have supercomputers in our pocket, and the guy's crying censorship. I just doesn't quite understand it, I guess. But
I mean, it's even debatable whether it's censorship, right? I mean, I understand that Timeless controls multiple channels.
Also, but let's put an offer out here. If Roger Ver wants to come on the show, we'd love to have Roger on to have us tell us what's going on here.
Well, the problem with that is that Roger went on Bitcoin Unlimited, right? And he stated his case, and he was perfectly logical.
Bitcoin Uncensored.
Bitcoin Uncensored. Sorry, he went on Bitcoin Uncensored. He stated his case. Everything was perfectly logical, but everything he said was wrong. So he can come on the show, and that's great. But all he's going to do is say things that are wrong, and we're going to disagree with him.
You're just sounding like Roger should be elected president.
All right. No, for real, Roger. No, we'd love to have you on the show. I didn't formally ever make him an offer yet. I just figured, I don't know. Sorry, go ahead, Tone.
Hey, just to call out that thought. Look, I understand that Timeless controls multiple channels, but the idea that it was censorship is also debatable, because he had very clear rules for the channel of Bitcoin, of altcoins. But about an altcoin would remove it. Forking Bitcoin is creating an altcoin. So he actually stuck to his original rules, and any discussion of Bitcoin XD hard fork was going to get moved out of there and go get your own channel for your altcoin, whether it's Bitcoin XD, whether it's Bitcoin Classic, or whether it's Bitcoin Unlimited. So it's very debatable whether it's going on. He basically to his original rules of the channel.
Yeah, it's just the censorship thing is what these Bitcoin Unlimited people seem to keep coming back to, and again, it's just very baffling. But Christopher, I think you had a point you wanted to make.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go back to the overarching goal of everyone in the space, and that is to drive Bitcoin forward as fast as we possibly can without making any drastic errors that harm the vast majority of users. So generally, I think I would encourage Roger Ver to take a step back. I know he's invested a lot of his brand into Unlimited, but at a certain point, you have to cut your losses, and I think he will be accepted back. And not that he's been like extradited from the community, but forgiveness is a major trait to be celebrated. And he can come back within core, and we can move forward. I mean, I'm just generally sick of the conversation around Unlimited at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope that the people out there listening are sick of it too. I mean, because we've got to move Bitcoin forward. And, it seems the Bitcoin core team knows this, and they've had their heads down with Segwit. And, so everything that we've been saying about we just want Bitcoin to move forward, well, that's what core team's doing, and that's what we're doing. So we are moving forward, and that is great news. Hopefully all this comes to a head. It's just that we still have Roger just yelling at the end, well, right, all the way to the end, even until Segwit activation. And maybe when Segwit goes 100% or 95%, maybe then Roger will consent a little bit. Maybe he'll even like Gavin, right? Gavin recently just posted 2 tweets right next to each other, right? One tweet was Bitcoin Unlimited, I hope you succeed. The next tweet was Segwit, I hope you succeed. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that was the last topic. If we wanted to, I think we wanted to talk a little bit about Ark a little bit. If you got a few more minutes, Chris.
Yeah.
I think. Okay, cool. I think Tone had some questions. Talk a little bit more about Ark, but that was the last topic. Unless anybody else has anything to add, I'd like to go to Tone. Cool. Go ahead, Tone.
Just floor is mine. Yeah, no, just a couple of questions. I know we briefly mentioned it before the show started, but we have to get the show going. And this is good. It would be great if you would be able to answer them even on live air for our viewers. So there's 2 main questions. So you're saying that you have an ETF where Bitcoin is one component and the rest of the components are single name stocks? Do I understand that correctly?
Yes. So
and go ahead.
It may be easiest if I just do a screen share really quickly. Vortex, does a screen share work within?
Yep, I believe you can do that. Should be the second icon on the top left.
Okay, so here, if I come, are you guys seeing a spreadsheet now?
Yep, yes we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a few second delay, so just keep.
Okay, so this is the way Ark works is all of our funds are transparent. So while we manage them as a hedge fund manager would or a mutual fund manager, you can see everything we hold, and we mail out an hour after every trade we make, roughly like a batch email of everything we've done. So like this is on our fund website. So you can see this is our Web X.0 ETF. It's a riff off of 1.0, 2.0, etc. And you can see right here, number 12 is Bitcoin. So it's actually grown. We, due to liquidity concerns, we're capped at putting it in at just under a 1% position. And so it's more than tripled for us.
So this is actually very interesting because you just answered 2 of my questions at once, because I see that the ticker is GBTC.
Yes.
And hey, so GBTC is publicly traded. I actually tried pulling it up on my broker, and it wasn't giving me price. So I guess I can't trade it on my broker. Can anybody trade it, or you need to be, a qualified investor on Barry Silbert's list in order to buy and sell, or can anybody do it?
So I think, let me see. I stopped screen sharing. Okay, so the way Grayscale's Bitcoin Investment Trust works is there's 2 legs to it. One is the private placement, which is for accredited investors and that's got a 1-year lockup. And then when you want to exit from your investment from there, you sell shares into GBTC. So GBTC is an over-the-counter instrument, so it's traded on OTCQX. And as far as I understand, I mean, I think I can buy it on Scottrade. So you can buy it. I mean, you can ask your broker.
I'll need to call my broker.
Yeah.
Find out.
I mean, as I'm sure you know, it trades at a premium right now. Interestingly enough,
it trades at a huge premium right now. I tweeted it out about a month ago. I have no idea what's going on. Have you guys done any due diligence and taken a look as to why it's trading at like a 40% premium over Bitcoin?
Yes. So, and actually an interesting side story to this is we bought GBTC at times. This was in September of 2015 before Bitcoin started making moves in November, when it traded at a discount to the underlying Bitcoin. So it's not perfectly tied to net asset value. It's really a function of supply and demand for GBTC itself. And so what's going on there is because investors that buy into the 1-year private placement, those investors are the only ones that are creating more shares of GBTC. So you have a lag in supply relative to demand. And so because GBTC is one of the only ways for investors to put Bitcoin into their independent retirement accounts, or for example, it's the instrument we had to use to get exposure to Bitcoin within an ETF, there's a high amount of demand for it, and that drives it to trade at a premium. Now, there's, more vehicles that are going to be coming to market in the years to come. And so eventually all those premiums will get squashed. This is just a way for sort of your everyday investor who doesn't want to touch a Bitcoin wallet or hardware wallet or whatever it may be to, go to their broker and get exposure to Bitcoin. It's an imperfect one, but it's an option.
I'm usually very good at just absorbing this in real time, or maybe it's the fact that it's past 1 a.m. I know
Could be
this
that
as well. I will rewatch what you said because I don't know. This situation makes me a little nervous about with the way they're doing it. I had no idea that was it. So people lock it in, and then GBTC. So it has its own demand and supply driven price, but the amount in shares going on the market is unpredictable because it's based on of the trust shares.
Yes. So think of
and
it
the
as
SEC is okay with this.
Well, it's an interesting solution, you could call it, that Grayscale has found. And I give them credit, and I like the guys there. I like Michael Sonnenschein. I like Terrence. I give them credit for finding a way to give the broader capital markets exposure to Bitcoin. I think they have over 100 million in assets. All of that said, it's version 1.0. And there's a lot of publicity around the pure play Bitcoin ETF, whether it be the Winklevoss twins or SolidX or whoever. But, we're probably still a few years away from that just due to liquidity constraints in the derivatives market. So right now,
I think there's a lot bigger problems, and I've said publicly, I've explained publicly on this show why I'm not expecting a Bitcoin ETF anytime soon. But this sounds like a crazy workaround to me.
It is a workaround. It is a workaround.
So there's absolutely nothing backing GBTC publicly traded shares?
Okay, so no, it is underlined. So it should technically map to 1/10 of a Bitcoin. So if the shares were trading at net asset value right now, it would be what, like $73 a share, $74
but
a share.
what is actually mapping them?
So, okay, so taking a step back, think of Grayscale's Bitcoin Investment Trust as two liquidity pools. One, the originating liquidity pool, is where investors, accredited investors, buy in $25,000 blocks, and they buy in directly to the net asset value of Bitcoin. They're locked in.
I believe it's at. So yeah, they're also buying it. I think at 1/10 ratio,
Yeah.
but that doesn't matter.
And
Barry holds the Bitcoin for them.
I think so. It's custodied by
He
Zappo.
goes out to the market and they hold it, right?
Yeah, it's custodied by Zappo, I believe.
Oh, that's fine. That's semantics. Yeah. If he trusts Zappo, then that's fine. But someone is holding that Bitcoin, in an account, basically.
Yes, and then at the end of 1 year, if those investors so choose, they can exit their investment and cash out by selling and creating shares of GBTC. At that point, those shares are publicly traded. So in a way, this is the way.
But the Bitcoin stays with Barry and Zappo?
Yes, so it is.
Or does the Bitcoin go to the market?
No, it's still held by the Bitcoin Investment Trust. But it is no longer, once it hits the second sort of share liquidity pool, you could think of it as, it no longer perfectly maps to NAV. It can become divorced from the net asset value of the underlying Bitcoin.
Are the numbers public of how much, what percentage of the Bitcoin being held by Barry and Zappo is in one form versus the other?
I don't know that is public. Like, you could go to Grayscale's website and they have like quarterly reports where all of the public information would be.
That's actually interesting. Okay, so on the one hand, I want to say that premium makes absolutely no sense, but on the other hand, registered value versus you going out and buying your own Bitcoin, taxes on it. So you could see like a 20% premium of capital gains taxes.
Which is
why it would trade at a 20% premium continuously back into the account that you got to pay 20% tax on it versus someone that just goes out and buys Bitcoin with cash.
Right. It's also a convenience tax, right? So, and depending on if you're paying short-term or long-term capital gains, you can think of different ways to justify the premium. I think the way I think about it is that, it's a market. This is what makes a market. And right now there's more buyers than sellers for GBTC in particular. For us, we're on the lookout for, and this is partially my job as well, is exploring different ways to securitize cryptocurrencies ourselves. We're on the lookout for something that more perfectly maps to Bitcoin. But right now, this is the best option we have to get Bitcoin into an ETF.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Did you have anything else, Tom?
Yeah. No. This is very interesting.
It's very interesting.
We can meet in New York town. I mean, we're both here, so we can talk more about it.
No, this is very interesting. I mean, it also means that Barry is going to perpetually buy in Bitcoin, creating a bigger and bigger honeypot, which also worries me. Right? I don't know. And he's already at 10-1, so 1-10, I should say. This gives me a lot to think about. I don't want to criticize it. Yeah, no.
I'd be curious to see how well Zappo is gonna.
Wait, what did you say? Did you say 1-10? That's just the units they're using. That's just the share units.
Yeah, 1/10 of.
No. They're buying like let's say if you invest almost 25,000, right? But let's say you invested $750. if you put in $750, but actually they wouldn't buy a full Bitcoin. They would buy. No, sorry. If you invest $750, they would buy a full Bitcoin, but you would have like 10 shares, not one.
And
Right.
each share would be worth $75. Yeah.
Right. Right. So one share is supposed to represent 1/10 of a Bitcoin.
Yes.
So it's not like 1-to-1; it's 1-to-10.
Yes.
Interesting. I mean, I'm not a Wall Street, person, Chris, so I won't have too many detailed questions for you. But I mean, I guess I have a couple of generic ones. Like basically, like when do you think? First of all, when do you think we'll see more ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs on Wall Street? And then, how much more of Bitcoin do you see on Wall Street by like 2020, by the 2020 halving? And do you think like the 2020 halving will have this huge amount more influence or create this another wave of new press cycle, basically create a whole new press cycle that will reach Wall Street? What do you think?
So let me start with the Bitcoin on Wall Street. And I should say, it's funny. I studied the ocean in my undergrad. I never ever thought I would work, quote unquote, on Wall Street. I think the reason I came out is ocean systems. I studied.
Really, I have a degree in geology. I'm not that far off from you.
Well, there you go. But part of the reason I joined Ark is because of the transparency, right? And the idea that transparency breeds trust. And, definitely Wall Street needs more trust and transparency. But in terms of what I'm seeing with Bitcoin in the Wall Street community, when we go back, late 2013, Bitcoin came on the radar of the mass media. 2014, a lot of people within mass media sort of derided it. And that's when somewhat the developers started saying, hey, well, there's also the technology that you have to think about. And then that message started getting corrupted early on in 2015 and raged by late 2015 to the blockchain, not Bitcoin argument, right? And then 2016 was really the proof of concepts of blockchain, permission blockchains. And now what I finally feel like is happening is the pendulum is starting to swing back towards the digital assets. And so I think that's going to be a slow and ongoing process. But for example, PwC announced Project Vulcan, right? Which while, it's a service that has been provided by other companies, it's notable in that it's from a big four consulting firm, right? And it's focused specifically on digital assets like Bitcoin and making them easy to use. So I think increasingly, Wall Street can't bury its head in the sand. It's part of my personal mission and Ark's mission, right, to educate the broader capital markets on the power of what's at hand here. And so I think that, you could see a much broader base of capital market investors putting Bitcoin in their portfolios, even just for its characteristics, like in terms of its lack of correlation. It works really well in a portfolio. So I won't go on and on about that. We can talk about that in another episode because it's a big topic in and of itself. In terms of ETFs, and maybe that's something we should also save in large part for another episode, is an ETF is a really complex instrument, and you need buy-in from a lot of infrastructure players within the capital markets, and you also need a pretty deep liquidity pool because with an ETF, you have to map the demand. So if you look at some of the prior ETFs of commodities, like the GLD, for example, launched in 2004, they had to create for the first month, every single day, $42 million worth of that ETF. If you were to currently do that to the Bitcoin, US dollar Bitcoin order books, which is likely what you would have to source Bitcoin off of for an ETF trust, you would blow up those books. And you would eat all the way through them, and then you would end up likely driving Bitcoin to a really precipitous premium, which would be good for all of the investors in the short term. But long term, what my fear is that would induce pretty severe volatility. And I don't want to go back to square one with convincing people of, Bitcoin's increasing maturity, right? I don't want people to have more arguments to say, oh, it's too volatile. You can't use it as a means of exchange. You can't use it as a store of value. It's just, in many ways, it would be taking a step back. I would prefer to be, slow and steady. Bitcoin is going to continue to progress. It's going to continue to gain traction. And when the markets are ready, an ETF will be launched. But there's no reason to irresponsibly move forward when not all the pieces are in place.
Interesting stuff.
Hey, so is there anywhere I can buy ETF default swaps?
Off like Bitcoin ETF default swaps?
Any type of ETF default swap. Like on the off chance the Burmese army sweeps the gold vault of GLD or whatever, or
there's not much gold left in there.
Gucci fur comes and takes all Bits holdings, and then boom, I get paid out. Is that a thing?
I have never seen any. My company used to run risk and credit default swaps. I've never seen any on ETFs. I don't think they exist.
You can go short though. You can short ETFs, but
of course,
that's probably the closest.
So I mean, for the last the last 3 minutes or so, what I've been mulling over is, I mean, what you just described basically tells me Bitcoin that Barry Silbert is buying up the clients will never see the light of day. It's basically going to be there forever. There's absolutely no mechanism to come back into circulation.
It's a good question. I don't know what the redemption process is to churn shares back into Bitcoin. And it's something I've asked myself. I can follow up with Grayscale and get back to you on that, Tone. But there has to be a redemption process, right? Otherwise, in the off chance Grayscale were to go insolvent, you would have to have a way to churn out the Bitcoin. I'm not aware of it personally.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would like to know, but I'm sure you would like to know since you're actually invested in the ETF. So that would probably be good information for you.
Yeah, our operations person took care of a lot of the operations due diligence, and I took care of a lot of the asset as an investment due diligence. So he would know.
The operation person still there?
Yes, Tom Stout. He's our director of product development.
Very cool. No, we're connected on Twitter now. I followed you back, so we can always talk, and maybe we'll meet up and continue the chat.
Just and I know we're already running pretty long, but I got another question for you, Christopher. How soon do you think we'll see Ethereum ETFs and Dash ETFs and all these ETFs of altcoins?
Well, I think we have to cross the Bitcoin ETF threshold first. Yeah. And it's interesting when you look at the liquidity of what's happened to the other altcoins out there. It's really dried up. I mean, and so I won't go down that path, but I think that, the Ether Trust filed a shell filing for an ETF, but Bitcoin far and away right now has the most liquidity, has the most stored value, the least volatility, and so that is, the point of focus. So one bridge at a time, I suppose.
Okay, that makes sense. And you also forgot the most security, but that's fine.
Arguably the most important point that I forgot, but yes.
Bitcoin definitely is the most secure, and that's what investors are going to look for, because they're going to see these other coins and they're like, what do you mean this coin is only 2 years old? What, you expect me to invest millions of dollars? And then Bitcoin comes along and it's like 10 years old, and it's just a huge difference, I think, and people are going to finally start coming around as Bitcoin continues to age and age. But go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, no, I was just going to make a quick comment. So the way I would answer that question is, I think the SEC is just waiting for Ethereum and Dash and like Litecoin to completely blow up, so they don't have to deal with the situation. So I think they're interested. They might consider launching a Bitcoin ETF, start to implode one by one, so that they don't get those stupid questions after the Bitcoin ETF launches.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. All right, well, I think we can close it out there. So unless you guys have anything else, no. Okay, cool. Thanks so much, guys.
Chris, how do people find you? You're the new guy.
Well, yeah, no, I'm gonna go with everybody. We're gonna have an outro, so I'll make sure to go with everybody one by one. But first, let me just thank everybody. Thank the guests so much for being here. Thank you guys so much. Thank the people in the chat room. You guys had a lot to say, especially Frank. We miss Frank. Gabriel and I miss Frank in the WCN chat room. He's always a character. So thanks, guys, so much. Again, thanks to everybody for watching the show and watching us for this long. We wouldn't be here without you guys. We've been here a year now, and so we're going to keep on going. We hope the next year is going to be just as strong. We hope, just like with Bitcoin, right? Every halving, we hope for another 4 amazing years, and so we hope for another year of the Bitcoin News Show on the WCN. And I just want to thank Thomas again. Thank Thomas and Chris Ellis and for creating the World Crypto Network and having a place for people like me to talk about Bitcoin, who has exhausted the patience of his friends, family, coworkers, girlfriend, on and on and on. This is a great outlet for us all to talk, and it's a great ritual for us all to come back to and every other Monday and talk Bitcoin. So thanks again so much. Thanks again, Thomas, so much, man. Well, from the bottom
and that's really it. If your friends are tired of listening to you talk about Bitcoin, come join us on the internet where we talk about Bitcoin all the time.
Yes, that's for sure. So first, we'll go with Thomas. How can we find you, man?
You can follow me at Mad Bitcoins and subscribe to the World Crypto Network below.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Christopher Burniske, where can we find you, man?
So I'm on Twitter at ARK Blockchain, and then publish all of my research along with Ark's research on autonomous vehicles, machine learning, et cetera, on our website at ark-invest.com.
Thanks so much. And a special thanks, to you and Tone. You guys are on the East Coast. I know it's super late, so just, thanks so much for hanging in there.
Dedication.
Yeah, dude, dedication, passion. We saw the passion in Tone and Christopher tonight. We loved it. Thanks so much, guys, for staying up. I know it's late, so we really, really appreciate it. And it's amazing your guys' brains can still work that well at this late at night. So that's definitely a testament to your guys' passion. Gabriel, where can we find you, man?
On Twitter at Gabriel Devine, and here on the World Crypto Network. Definitely subscribe. Keep an eye out for my next episode of Future Rant. It might feature a certain Tone vase. We are currently studying up. You have to spend time understanding these things. I mean, look at Ansel. This guy, he read 13 hours today. So we do a lot of research. We try to put things in a context for the viewers. And I just want to say special shout out to the entire ecosystem. Happy 16 million day. The 16 millionth Bitcoin was mine today. Happy 16 million, everyone.
Awesome. Very, very true. And thanks again, Gabriel, for being here, man. You're like one of the oldest guests that I've had, and it was just me and you, man, on Blab.im, having a great time. So thank you so much, Gabriel, for being there, dude. You're pretty much the brains to my show on my show. So I very much appreciate
Bitcoin.
Appreciate having you, man, because I'm not really the best at articulating stuff, but I tell you, you get Gabriel on a rant, and that is something worth listening to. So thank you so much, man. Tone, where can we find you, man?
My best way is probably Twitter, Tone_LLC. My blog is called Liberty Life Trail, and I recently started my YouTube channel, just Tone Base on YouTube. So far, it's only been market analysis, mostly indices, S&P, Dow, talk about gold, silver, currencies, US dollar, euro, and a little bit Bitcoin. So I just started that, see how that's going. Maybe we'll start getting on some guests. We'll see how that channel progresses.
Awesome, man. Yeah, lots of information for traders. If you're a trader, you got to watch that show. Lots of good information. Ansel, where can we find you, man?
I host the Bitcoin and Markets podcast, bitcoinmarkets.com. You can find me on Twitter at Ansel Lindner. And I just wanted to thank you, Vortex, for having me on. It's an honor to be on your 1-year anniversary show. I wish you even more success for the next year. And it's great to meet you guys, all you guys, because especially Thomas, I've been watching you for, I don't know, 5 years or however long you've been doing all the stuff you've been doing with Mad Bitcoins. And it's an honor to be on the station with you guys. So thanks.
Awesome,
Thanks,
Ansel. Yeah, thank you so much, man. You know, he's got a great podcast, Bitcoin and Markets. I listen to it every time that it gets released. He does that, I think, once a week, and it's just great. Lots of good information. It's long, couple hours long, so lots of good information in there. But, man, I love it. So if you guys are into Bitcoin, definitely check out his podcast. And thank you, Ansel. You know, you've been a pretty regular guest for a while now, for the past few months, and for a good while now. So we're really glad to have you on, man. Every time, we love it. So thanks so much. So thanks again, guys, so much, especially Chris, for being on the show. We loved having you, and hopefully we can get you on again to talk more about Ark. And had a great time, man. So thanks again, guys. Yeah, you bet, man. So thanks again. Thanks to everybody. We'll hopefully keep this going for another year. So thanks again, guys. And until next time, keep talking Bitcoin.
Keep talking Bitcoin.